So welcome to this latest video 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Practice Paper 2023 Foundation Set 4 Paper 3, which is a calculator paper. Now, as always, I'll include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which question refers to which mathematical topic. So let's get started on this practice paper of 2023 Foundation Set 4 Paper 3, which is a calculator paper. So looking at question 1, it says here is a list of numbers and it says write down the mode. Now the mode is the one that appears the most, so which of these numbers appears the most? Well, it's going to be number 5. It then says work out the mean, so what we need to do is add up all these numbers, so 3 plus 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 13. And that comes up to a total of 56. Now, it's always good practice, even though this is in the calculator, you kind of know what you're doing, so you're just quite eager to put it all into a calculator. But try and show some working out, as the question is worth 2 marks. And then we're dividing by the total number of numbers, which is 8. So 56 divided by 8 gives me an answer of 7. And then for question 2, it says write down the value of 2 in this answer. And so first we need to divide it by 100, so that's moving the decimal point 2 places to the left, so that it becomes 0.3278, and the 2 represents hundredths, so we can represent that as 0.02. Then moving on to question 3, it says write down a 2-digit prime number that's greater than 50. So quite a lot of options you can have here. So you could write, just choose this colored pen. So here we've got 53. You could have 59. You could have 61. You could have 67. You could have 71. Or you could have 73, 79, 83, 89. Or 97. So any of those numbers would be absolutely fine. Just make sure that you are writing down just one of those numbers. Question 3b, it says write down a square number that's greater than 20. So as long as you've got a number that is greater than 14, so you could have 15 squared is the smallest number you could have, which is 225. Now remember, it's the square number that you're wanting, not the number that you're squaring, so make sure that you're fully aware of what it is you're actually writing. Moving on to question 4, it says which of A, B, C or D is an enlargement of X? So the correct answer you should have is going to be D. So for question 4b, it says on this grid draw a shape that is a reflection of what shape Y, and it says show your mirror line. Now there's loads of different options you can have here, but I would say if I draw my mirror line there, which is not accurate at all, then just count the number of squares going up. But then what you want to do is with a ruler, which clearly I'm not using, you have like so. So as long as you've done a correct reflection, so again I could have mine here, which is 2 above. So again I'm looking at this here. Now you need to make sure that you're showing your reflection line, and that the size of the triangle has not changed. So it's a 3 by 2 triangle. Moving on to question 5, it says the total of 2 numbers is 36, and it says the second number is 5 times the first number. Work out the 2 numbers. So here if I end up with 2 numbers, so let's just put this here, and if I call the first number X, now because the second number is going to be 5 times the first number, then that's going to be 5X, and if I add the 2 numbers, it gives me 36. So what I've then got is 6x equals 36. So x equals 6. So if this number here is 6, then 5 times 6 is going to be 30. So my 2 numbers are 6 and 30. Then moving on to question 6, it says that a stall sells drinks and sandwiches. A family buys 10 items altogether. They buy more drinks than sandwiches and they save £3 using the offer. How much did they pay altogether? So for this one, let's first of all work out the separate price. And so the separate price is £1.50 plus £4, which comes up to £5.50. So that means that the saving is going to be the difference between £5.50 and £4.75, which is 75 pence. or in pounds 0.75. So then from this, if I then do £3, which is the saving, how much they saved, so £3 divided by 0.75, so that'll tell me how many meal deals they bought, and that comes up to a total of 4. So buying 4 meal deals, that equals 8 items. Now the question says that they bought 10 items altogether, and in the meal deal they get the same number of drinks as they do sandwiches. Now in the question it says that they buy more drinks than sandwiches, so that means that the extra 2 items must equal 2 drinks, and the price of 2 drinks is £3. So then adding up the total amount, so if I'm buying 4 meal deals and 2 drinks, then 4 meal deals will cost 4, what I'm doing now, it's going to be 4 times 4.75 plus 2 drinks, which is 2 times £1.50, and that comes up to a total of £22. Then moving on to question 7a, it says work out the output of y when x equals 4. So all I'm doing is substituting 4 and then going to multiply it by 6 and then take away 5 from the answer, which gives me an answer of 19. For 7b, it then says complete the number machine so that y equals 2x plus 7. Well, starting with x, I need to multiply it by 2, and then I need to add 7. Then for question 7c, it says here is a different number machine, and it says write down the equation of this machine of y equals. So here we're starting with x, then we're dividing it by 2, and then we're adding 5. So then the answer is going to be x over 2 plus 5, or I could write it as x divided by 2, make sure you got it in brackets, plus 5. Then moving on to question 8, it says that a gas company estimates the amount of household will spend on gas next year. The estimate is 2,500 excluding VAT, and VAT is added at 5%. The household wants to pay in 12 equal monthly payments. Is £220 per month enough to pay for the gas? You must show you're working. So first things first, let's work out the VAT. So the VAT is 5% of 2,500. So on the calculator, if I then do 0.05 multiplied by 2,500, that comes up to an amount of £125. So that therefore means that the total bill is going to be 2,500 plus 125, which is 2,625. So then I would then want to work out the monthly payments. So the monthly payments is going to be 2,625 divided by 12, and that comes up to a value of £218.75. So is £220 per month going to be enough? Well, yes, it is, as 218.75 is less than 220. Moving on to question 9, it says the table shows the savings for 30 students in 1 week, and it says how many students saved more than £5. Well, 5 or less is the first group, so 5 or more is going to be 14 plus 9 plus 5. So I've just got to add those 3 numbers together, and that comes up to a total of 28. Alternatively, I could have just done 2 take away from 30, and I've got the same answer. Then says how many students did not save anything. So for this, in order to save, well, every single S value is greater than 0. So all of the 30 students have saved something. So how many students did not save anything? Well, that's going to be 0. Then for question 10, it says solve 8x equals 4. So what we need to do here is get rid of the 8. So we divide by 8. So x equals 4 divided by 8, which equals a half. So I can either write it as a fraction or I can write it as a decimal. Then moving on to question 11, it says that Ronnie draws a pie chart to represent the amount of time he spent watching TV in December. Altogether, he watched 90 hours. How many hours did he spend watching sport? Well, sport equals a quarter. So then a quarter of 90 is going to be 90 divided by 4, which I can type in on my calculator, which is 22.5 hours. Or you could write it as 22 hours and 30 minutes. The next question then says, write down in one way in which his pie chart could be improved. Well, there's a couple of things that's not done on this. So in terms of this, there is a label missing for one of the sections. Or you could state that you could add the missing angle. So any of those things would be fine. To be fair, they both mean the same thing, but basically the error is, what was this? What was Ronnie watching there? Moving on to question 11C, it says in January he watched 90 hours of TV, he watched 50 hours of documentary. Ronnie says this is more than in December because the pie chart showed I watched less than 45 hours of documentaries. Comment on his claim. So here we just need to write that 45 hours is half the pie chart, and documentaries is less than half. So something along those lines would be enough for that single mark. Then moving on to question 12, it says the diagram shows the results of a survey of 1,200 British motorists, and it says how can you tell that the percentages is not exact figures? Well, one thing you should be able to spot is that if I add up all of those percentages together, that it doesn't add up to 100. So the percentages do not add up to 100. In fact, that they add up to 101%. It then says using the percentages given, how many students think electric cars are a bad idea? So for this we just need to do the total, which is 1,200, and we multiply that by 28% as a decimal, so that's 0.28. Type that into your calculator and you get an answer of 336. Then says the percentages in the survey are given to the nearest 1%. Work out the smallest possible number of motorists who thought electric cars were a good idea. So here we're looking at 63% to the nearest percent. So if we add and subtract 0.5%, because that's half of 1, then we get our upper and lower bounds of 62.5% and 63.5%. Now for the smallest possible answer, we're going to use the lower limit. So it's going to be 1,200 multiplied by 62.5 as a decimal, which is 0.625. And if I type that into my calculator, I get the answer of 750. Now moving on to question 13, it says that n is an odd number. Tick whether each of these expressions are odd or even. Well, 4 times an odd number is always going to give me an even answer. Then here I've got an odd, n is odd, so it's going to be odd. And then an odd number plus 1 is always going to give me an even number. And an even times an odd number is always going to give me an even answer. Now if you're not sure about that, then just imagine numbers, pick an odd number, substitute it in and see whether it's odd or even. Then finally it then says an odd number squared. Well, if you multiply any odd number by another odd number, it's going to give you an odd answer. Then moving on to question 14, it says AC and E are straight lines, and it says that AC is equal to BC. Work out the size of angle X. So we know that this angle here is going to be angles in a triangle, so I can work out this triangle here, this angle here, by doing 180 minus 44 minus 72, which gives me an answer of 64 degrees. Now this angle here is opposite, so that's also going to be 64. So then all that's left for me to do now, because triangle ABC is an isosceles triangle, that this angle here is also going to be X. So taking this all the angles out of ABC, I've got 2x plus 64 equals 180, because angles inside a triangle add up to 180. So then I work this out, so I've got 2x is going to equal 116 by taking away 64 and then dividing by 2. I get an angle of x being 58 degrees. Then moving on to question 5, it says the diagram shows a cross-section of a triangular prism of length 12. Jasper wants to work out the volume of the triangle prism. He writes the volume equals 10 times 5 times 12 and equals 600. His method isn't fully correct. Write down the correct solution. So the issue that we've got here is that what Jasper has done is that he's not actually worked out the cross-sectional area of the prism. So to work out the area of a triangle, it's 10 base times height divided by 2, which is what he forgot to do, and then we multiply it by the length, which is times 12. So the calculation we need to write is 10 times 5 divided by 2 times 12. Now that's going to be 50 divided by 2 times 12, which is 25 times 12, which gives me an answer of 300. And we need to make sure we're writing our units, and it's going to be 300 centimetre cubed. Then moving on to question 16, it says that on a map, the distance between two towns is 5 centimetres. The actual distance is 2 kilometres. Work out the scale of the map as a ratio in its simplest form. So first things first, when you're writing a scale, the 2 units on either side have to be the same. So what we've got is we've got 5 centimetres equals 2 kilometres. Now what I need to do is convert 2 kilometres into centimetres. So 2 km into centimetres. Well, 1 kilometre equals 1,000 metres, which equals 1,000 times 100 centimetres. And if I work that, I've got 1, and then I'm going to end up with 5 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 kilometre equals 100,000 centimetres. So then 2 kilometres is going to be 200,000 centimetres. So then from this, if I use this number and the fact that it's 5 centimetres, so 5 centimetres equals 200,000 centimetres. And then if I simplify this by dividing both sides by 4, I get 1 centimetre to 40,000. So 1, and it's going to be to 40,000. Then moving on to question 17, it says the direct route between 2 airports A and B is 690 kilometres. The aircraft leaves A at 6:30 and arrives at B at 8:00. Work out the average speed of the aircraft, assuming that the aircraft travelled in direct route. So here we've got speed equals the distance divided by the time, and we want it in kilometres per hour. So the kilometre distance is 690, and the hour time in hours is going to be 1.5, and that's km, and that's in hours. And then if I type that all into my calculator, I get the answer of 460. Then for B, it says, in fact, the aircraft went an alternate route. It still arrived at 8 p.m. What does this mean about the average speed compared to your answer in part A? Well, if we had A and B, and in part A, it went straight from A to B. However, in this, it's going a direct route. So that means it must have travelled longer. So as the plane travelled further and still arrived at the same time, it must have travelled faster. And so we just need to tick that box there. Then moving on to question 18, it says the distance time graph shows Josh's journey from his house to Canterbury and back. And the question is saying match each statement to one section of the journey. Now the average speed was 20, so we're looking at a gradient of when it's 20, and that is going to be section C. And again, how do we do that? Well, it's just a case of that the speed is basically the distance divided by the time, or in other words, the gradient of the line. So the next one is average speed of 50. So we're looking for a triangle which equals 50, and that is going to be E. And again, the reason for that is because the total distance is 100 miles and the time is 2. So 100 divided by 2 is 50. Where it's stationary is where it's flat and horizontal, so that's at D. And the fastest part of the journey is the one with the biggest slope, which is B. The next question then says, how far did Josh travel altogether? Well, for this, we know it's 100 miles to get from his journey to Canterbury, and then he's travelled 100 miles back, so it's just simply going to be 100 plus 100, which equals 200 miles. Then for question 19a, it says Andrea writes root 13 squared plus root 13 squared minus 12 squared equals 13 minus 12 equals 1. What is wrong with her method? Write down the correct answer. So again, there's a few issues that she's got here. Is when taken away, she's not actually worked out, she can't separate it with the square root. So here, what we need to have done is done the square root of 13 squared minus 12 squared is root of 196, take away 144, and that equals root 25, which equals plus or minus 5. So the correct answer is plus or minus 5, not 1. The next question then says that Oren writes 5 squared times 5 squared times 5 squared equals 5 to the power of 2 times 2 times 2, which is 5 to the power of 8. And the question's asking what is wrong with her method. So when multiplying, we add the powers. So what it should be is 5 to the power of 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is 5 to the power of 6. Then for question 20, we want to write these numbers in ascending order. So that's smallest to largest, so small to big. And what we need to do is we need to convert each of these numbers into ordinary form or standard form. So we're going to write this as 9, or it's move the decimal point 2 places, so that's 982, and this is where we move the decimal point 3 places. So these are our 3 numbers. So the smallest number, now I always like to write the original way of in which they've written it, so it's going to be 9.82 times 10 to the power of 2, or you could write 982. Then the next smallest is 9.81 times 10 to the power 3, which is 9810. And then the largest number is 9,812. Then moving on to question 21, it says factorise, so we want to use double brackets here. So what two numbers multiplied together give me positive 20 and added together give me minus 9. So looking for two numbers multiplied together give me 20, added together equal minus 9, in which the two numbers are going to be minus 4 and minus 5. So we just need to write those brackets, and you can write them in any order. So if you want to write x minus 5 in one bracket and then x minus 4 in the other, that's going to be absolutely fine. Then for question 21b, we want to solve this equation. So all we're doing here is making each bracket equal to 0. So then we've got an answer of positive 4 or positive 5. Then moving on to question 22, we want to solve this simultaneous equation. So we check, have we got the same number of x's, same number of y's? Well, we've got the same number of x's. Are they the same sign? Yes, they are. So we take away. So 3x take away 3x is nothing. 2 minus minus 1 is 3. So we've got 3y. And 10 take away 13 is minus 3. Don't know why I've wrote 1 there, so let me get rid of that. And we've got minus 3. So that means that y equals minus 1. Then picking out one of the equations, so let's go for this one. So we've got 3x minus y equals 13. We know that y equals minus 1, so I've got minus 1 equals 13, so 3x plus 1 equals 13, so 3x equals 12, so x equals 12 over 3, which is 4. So here I've got x equals 4 and y equals minus 1. Then moving on to question 23, it says that the diagram shows a cuboid and its diagonal. The formula to work out the length of the diagonal in centimetres is a squared plus b squared plus c squared, all square rooted. Work out the length of a diagonal when a equals 8, b equals 5 and c equals 3. So all we need to do here is substitute those numbers in, and if I enter this on the calculator exactly how it's shown, then I get an answer of square root of 98, which I could write that. So I could write root 98. I could either write the answer as 7 root 2, or I can write 9.89. Oh, what's going on there? 9.899, and then whatever the decimal is. I can even copy what's on the calculator. It then says round your answer to 2 significant figures, and if I round this number up to 2 significant figures, it gives me 9.9. Then for question 23c, it says work out the length of a diagonal in terms of a when b equals 4a and c equals 8a. Well, a is going to continue being a, so substitute those numbers in. I've got a squared plus b squared, which is 4a, and c squared, which is 8a squared. Then simplifying all of this, well, I've got a squared plus, and this is going to be 16a squared plus 64a squared, and that's all square rooted. Then simplifying each of that, so I've got 1 plus 16 plus 64 is 81a squared, and the root of 81 is 9, and the root of a squared is a, so the correct answer then is 9a. Then moving on to our last question, it says the diagram shows 2 circular arcs with centre O. How much longer is the big arc than the small arc? Now for this, it's a little bit confusing, but this here is our small arc, and this arc here is our big arc. So don't get confused with this arc here, because it's just telling you what the angle here is going to be. Now the arc length formula is theta over 360 multiplied by 2 times pi times r. So this is the formula that we're going to be using. So the big arc is going to be 60 divided by 360 multiplied by 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by the big radius, which is 42. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 14 pi. Then for the small arc, I use the same formula. So here I've got 60 divided by 360 multiplied by 2 multiplied by pi, but this time the radius of that small arc is 30. So then typing that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 10 pi. So then here, working out how much longer it's going to be, well, the difference is going to be 14 pi minus 10 pi, which equals 4 pi, or I could write that as a decimal, which is 12.6 centimeters, and that's to 1 decimal place. So any of those 2 answers would be absolutely fine, and that concludes the end of this paper.